Impacting lives, choose life, sharing love to everyone. Impacting lives, choose life, sharing joy through the gospel of Jesus, gospel of Jesus, gospel of Jesus Christ.
Welcome to Living Life God's Way. Real life, real talk. Real hope, every show. Join us every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. as we discuss topics relating to life, church, family, education, and so much more. Invite a friend, tag them even, but don't you dare miss the show. Living Life God's Way every Thursday at 6:30 p.m.
And good evening to you. Welcome to Living Life God's Way. It's another week, another exciting week, another hot week. Extremely hot. Super duper hot. But we are here. We're kind of cool right now. We are glad you're with us. So good evening. Please share the live stream with someone and let them know Living Life God's Way is on. And we are continuing our discussion on raising teens in a Christian home. This evening we're going to talk about co-parenting. Now what?
Blended families.
Blended family.
Blended.
Yes, I have great support. So that's what we're going to talk about this evening on Living Life God's Way. So we hope that you will be blessed. We hope that you will be encouraged. We are excited to share our thoughts and our opinions, and I believe our experiences as well in co-parenting and so on. So please stay with us. We will be right back on Living Life God's Way. So good evening, welcome to Living Life God's Way. If you're not joining us, we're glad that you are here with us. I'm here with these two great ladies, Dr. Colleen and Elder Sheridan. Ladies, please say hello. Hello.
I was just
saying hello. I'm following instructions.
Well, hello. Welcome to Living Life God's Way. I was just saying hello. I'm following instructions. Well, hello. He's having fun here.
Technical difficulties.
He's having fun. That's a double welcome.
That's a double
welcome. There you
for sure. You're finished?
Hi, hello. Welcome. You're glad you're here. But he said hello. So
I thought more was
I'm
coming.
following the pattern. Yeah,
I
but
thought more
you
was
know, the
coming.
usual, I'm looking forward to this discussion. Part of it is new to me, and part of it, well, co-parenting, you know, I've been through that. So just looking forward to share our bits and also to hear from the others, to hear your comments and questions as well. And let's have a good time. Share the link.
Yes. All right. So as you see, we're having fun and we're laughing and stuff. We are all three of us are parents, and you know, if we are smiling, you know, it means that
What does that mean?
we have not murdered anybody. You know, we are loving them, and you know, you're working with them and stuff. You know, just kidding. But we're talking about co-parenting this evening on Living Life God's Way. So please share the live stream with someone who you know is doing the same, co-parenting with someone else, and you know. Very often we as parents have difference in opinion from where the other person has and how to do this or how to do that, and then sometimes there could be a little friction going on. But hopefully we'll get to discuss all of that this evening. So let's hear our definition on what is co-parenting as a charity?
Okay, so definition for co-parenting. Interesting. Co-parenting is an enterprise undertaken by parents who together take on the socialization, the care, and upbringing of children for when they share equal responsibility.
Mm.
The co-parenting relationship differs from intimate relationship, they say. But the gist of it, they're working together, and a new word, it's an enterprise.
Enterprise.
An enterprise.
I like that.
Sounds like a
You like
business,
that?
I
right?
like that.
How about you like that?
I like that because it sounds so like it is serious and
Hmm.
there's strategy involved and
Hmm. See?
there need to be meetings
You
and
see?
there need to be conversations and there need to be exchange of understanding.
Okay.
It sounds so business
Yeah,
like
so,
that,
yeah,
right?
so-
From a
That's what
male
enterprise
perspective,
means.
right?
Yeah. And it sounds like when stuff is to be done,
Mhm.
it has to be intentionality happening so that there is, let's say you have to make a decision,
Yeah,
there's a discussion.
right.
If something, I believe that's why they use the word enterprise so that we understand.
Bring it out
Yeah,
like
the
a
level.
partnership.
yes,
Mm.
that too. Yes,
The
yeah.
All right.
definition of enterprise is a project or undertaking,
Right.
typically one that is difficult or requires effort.
Yes,
Oh, dear.
yes.
I think
Yep.
that's better.
Yep. That's that, and that totally explains it
Oh,
because
yeah.
co-parenting is a serious thing, and there can be either real confusion or there can be a level of understanding
Yes.
and so on. Could you bring that back up again for us? Let me just I just wanted to glance there really,
Yeah.
very hard because I think it's quite interesting,
Mhm.
and I think that we parents and those who are co-parenting need to understand this. It is a project. We don't always see raising our children as a project, or we don't see co-parenting as a project. We just see it as, oh, I tell you what to do. I give you money to go to school.
Mhm.
We, occasionally we have family dinner and stuff like that. But this is interesting when it says a project, because when I think of a project, I think of consistency.
Mhm.
I think of a level of seriousness. I think of a level of commitment. I think of long term and so on, as opposed to, oh, just do it and that's the end of it.
Mhm.
It seems like something that I will have to. Great intentionality is important there. I have to be
Agreed.
intentional about time. I have to be intentional about the conversations. I have to be intentional. So I believe that all of that constitutes this definition.
Mhm.
And project is what that.
An individual or collaborative enterprise,
Mhm.
again, that is carefully
You
planned
hear that word? Carefully planned.
to achieve
You're right.
a particular aim.
You're right. So strategy is involved.
Mhm.
It must be carefully thought out,
And a plan.
and
And a
it
plan.
must have a plan.
Mhm.
Because with parents, sometimes we find ourselves doing the back and forth with each other, especially when we don't agree on certain things, and then obviously the lack of discussion and so on
Mhm.
can bring great inconsistency with
Right.
our children, where they can find themselves, I ran to mommy for this because I know mommy will say this, or I ran to daddy for this,
Yeah.
I know daddy will say that, So I like the word enterprise being used there. And the ladies can jump in and
You know,
share
as you said that just now about going to mommy and daddy, I remember growing up, if there's anything you wanted done or you needed, you go to mommy. Mommy, can I do so and so and so? You talk to daddy about that. You figure you can get away, right? So you
Yeah.
go on to daddy. Daddy, I was thinking about doing so and so. You talk to your mother.
Yeah.
So anyhow you take it,
Mm.
But as you said, the intentionality about it and the planning, it gives a greater sense of seriousness now in this co-parenting thing.
Mhm.
The intention and being able to sit down and have a plan for every situation now, that puts parenting in a deeper, to
Different,
me, a deeper, different light. And this is something for us to bear in mind as Christians.
Mhm.
Something I'm taking note of as well.
It almost sounds like if at some point the parent should have a board meeting.
Yes.
The parent should have it doesn't have to be formal, but you could be
Mhm.
just having a casual conversation, understanding the importance of these charges that I have, meaning the children.
Yeah.
I understand the seriousness of it. So the way how we converse or we raise them, and co-parent doesn't have to be in-house. You could be father somewhere else, mommy somewhere else, or whatever.
Mhm.
But the point is that there's a
Involved.
teamwork involved as opposing to
Mhm.
getting caught up with, this is my way as daddy, or this is my way as mommy, that's how you do it. And, I think that we have to have some beginnings.
No, I agree. I think co-parenting is normally used when parents are separated.
Right.
But I think it can equally, or the skills and the thought process behind co-parenting does also apply to parents who are together, because you still have a co-parenting situation,
Yeah.
because you may have different styles of parenting.
Right.
And like you said, Elder Shirley, you would go to your mum and she would say to you, have you been to, what did your dad say? And your dad then says, what does your mum say? So they're obviously equally parenting.
Right.
But in some occasions, they'd also be co-parenting, but there might be occasion when mummy wants to agree to something and daddy doesn't.
Right.
What happens? You've got to have a discussion,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You're still
yeah.
got to do the same things. So even though co-parenting is normally associated with parents that are separated, I really feel that, as I said, the skills and what you should do is just parenting, full stop, in terms of how you want to, like you said, the project, in terms of a outcome or an aim at the end, that involves both parents and maybe even extended family as well on
Right.
some occasions, right? When I first heard the word enterprise, initially I was like, it sounds like a business, sounds very detached, very cold,
Yeah, exactly.
very
We remember.
very it was like, again, teaching business that's solely used for business purposes, and to associate it or relate it to something more social, such as
Right.
family,
Yeah.
is like that doesn't normally, kind of coincide.
Mhm.
But obviously now we've dissected and looked at the words and broke it down. So I love words. That's why I like researching the meaning of words,
Yeah.
because you get a deeper understanding of the word
Right.
and how you can apply it.
Right.
And so we've looked at enterprise, looked at co-parenting, we've looked at projects, and they all are things that are related to parenting.
Right.
So although I may not use enterprise myself,
Mhm.
I can understand the concept of looking at parenting in a kind of business model in that way, in
Right.
terms of structure, meetings, communication, direct instruction, guidance, and all of that. I can work with that.
What I was thinking about, like I'm thinking about a couple who's planning to get married, and they're both planning to have children, and in the early stages you might be saying, oh, I love children. You can see the person love children, you might love children, and that's all unique, or both persons are teachers, so they're involved, and so you assume everything is going to be all right. But even from our definitions, we are seeing that we have to go through the whole process in terms of discipline, how you handle this, how you plan to do when they reach a certain age, how do
Right.
we discipline them? It's like, as you said, more intentionality involved there. So
Mhm.
even if everyone loves children, you still have to take time and really plan
Right.
for when the children come. How are we going to do this thing?
Right.
Because I think the discussion comes in, or the board meeting comes in, when things kind of go helter-skelter.
Right. Right.
And difficulties come. So, I'm thinking about myself, because you learn from yourself, you recognize, wait, yeah, we both believe in disciplining, but one prefer to put them in a corner, the other one prefer to put them in the room locked up. And it's like conflicts. How are we going to handle this thing, So it's really important that we plan, break it down and talk, discuss. Yeah.
I think that's the challenge, though, isn't it? That we've already established that research-wise, a lot of children are not planned.
Right.
Yeah,
Because I think we had that.
we had a
Yeah,
discussion,
yeah,
I think,
yeah.
in the first session,
Right.
that the majority, I can't remember the percentage now, but research has shown that quite a high percentage of children are unplanned. And so, if the children are not planned, you're then expecting to sit down and plan how we're going to discipline. How those discussions may never occur, even
Right.
if you're married, because you can have an unplanned pregnancy in marriage as well. you know, but not quite ready yet. One's not quite ready yet, but it happens, and you know what have you. So that discussion still might not take place.
Right.
And you talked about children, you know, liking children, loving children. But liking and loving children is one thing, but having your own children is a whole different ballgame,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
right? So
It's true.
and that you can't give them back.
Right.
You
Exactly.
can't send them
Leave
back. You know, you can't just leave them. They're
Yeah.
there. They're yours,
Right,
right?
It's
yeah.
true.
So it's a whole different situation. I mean, I know people who absolutely adore children, work in nurseries, work in education, and so on, but do not have children. Don't want to have children of their own. They're quite happy nurturing and developing other people's children,
Right.
but
Yeah.
don't want their own.
Right.
Right. So I think there's also that, making sure that you actually like children of your own, which you don't know until you have.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So there's all those things to consider, but
Yeah.
co-parenting or you know, blended, we can look at that later, but co-parenting is something that I think should happen irrespective of the situation of the adults.
Let's say in terms of co-parenting, guy has a child and his lady, and then they split and they live in separate houses. Obviously, you will have the clash of different morals. In some cases, and as much as we will say Christian or non-Christian, there could be where you have different thoughts about stuff. How can you manage that so that there's no confusion? Because that can very much lend to some major hot stuff. How?
That's a hot one.
That's a hot one, yeah.
That's a hot one to
Yeah.
hold.
How you know?
I think for me, once the parents, and this is the hard part,
Right.
can be mature.
That's
Right.
it.
You can be mature about the situation, irrespective of how the breakup occurred.
Right.
But I think what worked for me was keeping my son at the forefront of the decision making. It wasn't about my emotions. It wasn't about how I felt. It wasn't how I felt about the situation or how I felt about the other person.
Right.
It was about what really is the best for my child.
Right.
And sometimes it's not going to be something that you want to do.
Right.
But that's where the maturity comes in.
Right.
Right. And it can be very hard to do. Don't get me wrong, it can be very hard, especially if the split or the breakup has been, challenging or been difficult or abusive or whatever. There could be a lot of hurt there, but that is for the other person to get counseling and to seek healing on that,
Right.
and not allow it to interfere with the raising of the child. So for me, it's about really putting the child at the forefront. What is the best for my child? And a lot of the time, the relationship you have with the other person, the relationship your child has with that person is completely different.
Right. Right.
It's completely different. They might be really awful to you, but they're a really good parent. But you're clouded by the way they treat you.
So how do you deal with that? Because
You've got to be mature.
mature. Okay.
You've
Okay.
got to be mature. You've
Okay.
got to think, oh gosh, irrespective of the thoughts going through my head, what is the best for my child? And then work. And you will be told, you know what's best for your child, right? You're the parent,
Right.
okay? So you know what's best for your child, and that decision has to be based on what is best for the child, not what you think is best for you and the child.
Right. Right.
What is best for the child. And as I said, a lot of the time, or there will be occasions where the answer is not what you want to do, but it's the best for your child. So you should do it.
Okay.
And that's the maturity.
I can feel it burning coming something.
Look, going through that process is very painful. Especially, when it comes to the stage where you're accustomed, let's say, being in one family, everyone is in the same household. And then suddenly you find out the children is going on weekends and you have to see them all walking, leaving the yard,
Oh, yeah.
and everybody's going, and it's like, wow. And especially as, Doc was saying, when the person may have certain attitudes or whatever towards you. And initially, that was my major concern, that they will experience the same thing, but then I guess what made it easier for me in the sense that I grew up having both parents, and I always saw the importance, and that was my, big problem with me, how not having children growing up with their father.
Right.
And so I was committed to being in a place mentally. So I went and I got counseling. And then I began to, as Colin said again, the way the guy treats you, he treats the children differently.
Mm.
So with the step of faith, I allowed them to move and go. But when they came back, I keep listening to how they responded and what they said. And, there were times they had fun. They bought ice cream or they did so and so. And I said, all right. So I began to relax. So that actually I began to look out for the times when they had to go.
Mm.
I cleaned up, neatened up the house, and that was my day.
Right.
Do what I wanted to do, drive whatever I wanted to do,
Mm.
but initially it has to do with maturity. It has to do with putting yourself aside and thinking about what the children need. And sometimes we as moms, and I refer to that, we have to learn to allow the children to discover their father for themselves.
Right.
Don't be
Oh,
saying
no.
I couldn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have heard so many things about men saying that the women don't allow the children to see.
Yeah.
If they don't pay maintenance, the mother will block the children from visiting their father, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, from my perspective, don't let money be the determining factor. Don't let things be the determining factor,
Right.
because you have to look at the child's need.
Well said. Well
The
said.
child will go up one day, and if there's any truth, they will discover it for
Yeah,
themselves.
absolutely.
I always say you cannot hide truth, but I'm glad that was the way that I took, and that is something that we all can consider, too. Don't judge things on the basis of how he treats you, number one, and also to give your children the opportunity to experience their father without that bias, and keep monitoring.
And you're quite right, because you're right too, Doc, because your interaction with the child can be so much different from the interaction with dad, and obviously if you're talking about mom as well, because sometimes I find that we parents can have our children feeling so negative about the other parent because of your experience. So then you share stuff that you shouldn't have, and then the child gets caught up in it, trying to figure out, because all you're doing is confusing the child. And what I found is a child will love the other parent whether you say good or whether you say bad. And all you're doing is giving the child a headache, because the child is obviously, well, I love my dad or I love my mom, despite whatever you have to say. And you always find the child halting in between two opinions when it comes to the other parent. So I think that we parents need to be mindful of that when we are dealing with our children, so that we are never making the other parent look bad, but we're just dealing with the child. If there's an issue, you deal with the parent privately, and that's why I like the enterprise thing, because there are times when management has meetings
Yeah.
that those that are under are not a part of. So you have to understand that as parents, whether you are together or not, you need to have discussions at some point in time, which may not always be pretty. I'm sure you ladies have come out of meetings where things didn't go too pretty, but those that were, the next level didn't know what happened, because you came out and you were mature about it. And I love that, when you said that, Dr. Colin, you said being mature. Every parents have to be mature, because if we are not mature, we can get children involved in adult stuff. And my youngest son, I told him the other day, we went out to have ice cream, and we had a discussion, and he was like, Dad, there's some stuff that we need to talk about. And he started. He's my 8-year-old.
Wow.
And I said, well, when you become an adult, we'll have this conversation. So he was like, but I understand. No, we can have it. No, why can't I have it? No. I said, because you're a child. So he was like, so because I'm a child, you can't share that? And I said, yeah, this is for adult. This is an adult conversation. So we'll have it then. So I think that is important for us as parents to set those boundaries and those guidelines with our children, our the young children, because we may have adult children, where you can have certain discussions with.
Mhm.
But I think it's important to do this so that our children understand the importance of teamwork, because that's what co-parent is.
Mhm.
It's teamwork,
Mhm.
you know, and we have to work together. And like you said, Dr. Collins, whether we agree or not, or whether we see eye to eye, or whether, you know, sometimes you may feel like, I don't like you, you don't like me. But it's important to understand that there is a discussion that needs to be had. And if we don't operate in that place of maturity, we can have our children exposed to conversations and words and things that they should not be involved in. Let them be children. You know,
Mhm.
we handle the adult business and we handle it privately. We handle it in a mature manner, and as we handle it in a mature manner, then our children will benefit from, you know, the good behavior.
Mm.
But if we don't, may Jesus help us.
But the thing about it too is when we don't handle it in a mature way, or when we do handle it in a mature way, the children pick up.
Right,
They pick it up,
for sure.
you know. So, and it's interesting, some like certain discussions you would have had just with the other parent while the child was young. And you say, okay, then you come across and say, yes, everyone will be going to Sunday school.
Hmm.
And then the child, when they're a teen, Mom, when we were younger, one preferred Sunday school and one didn't care if you went to Sunday school or not. I said, how you know that?
Mhm.
They pick it up,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
So it really is important, because I don't think sometimes parents, when parents are hot-headed, they're not realizing how what they do is impacting these children. As early as 6 years, 8 years old, they're picking it up. And if we want to help them, as you were saying last week, in with parenting activities, move over from childhood to teens and so forth. I mean, we have to be thinking about them in everything we do, our
Yeah.
decision making, our responses. That means if you disrespected the father, or the father disrespected the mother in front of the child, then you have to go back and, you know, apologize in front of the child.
Yep.
Mhm.
You know, all these things are having impact on the child. So this co-parenting thing is very serious.
yeah, yeah.
I wanted to circle back to the point he was making about speaking ill of the other parent.
Mm.
And one of the things and the confusion it causes for the child.
Right.
But also, if we take the example that the other parent obviously parents really well, even though you don't have a good relationship with the person,
Mm.
the quickest way to make you yourself look like a liar is to talk ill of the parent. The child then goes to the parent, and the parent is nothing like what you've just said,
Yeah,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So that's why you should refrain from speaking ill of the parent,
Yes.
the other parent.
Yeah.
Totally.
Particularly, as I said, if the parent is a good parent,
right.
right? Beside all the other stuff. And as you said, Elder Sheridan, you know, children were not, what I had to know, children are not children forever,
That's
right? They grow up,
That's a consolation.
right?
Yeah, that's
They grow up.
Mm.
They grow up, they mature, and as you said, they start to remember things from childhood. They start to analyze for themselves. They start to see, because remember, the parent is already grown,
Yep.
Right.
so they're not going to change much
Right.
in that time that the child is growing,
Right.
right? So there's some default personality, behavior traits, and so on will remain. So the child at 6 will see that again at 16. They'll
Right.
see the same trait at 26.
Right.
Okay, so all you have to do is just sit back and just let it play out. You know,
Yeah.
just let it
Yeah.
play out. Don't interfere in that. But that is
No.
not your job to interfere
Mhm.
in that process
Mhm.
of the relationship with
Yeah.
the other parent.
Right.
Your job is to do your parenting, you know,
Mhm.
as you said, as an
Yeah.
enterprise, and you make the best decisions based on what's best for your child.
Mm.
But the one of the worst things I think a parent can do is speak ill of another parent, particularly if that parent does not display.
Mm.
We know they've got them, but they
Right.
don't display those characteristics to that child.
Right.
You're going to look like the biggest liar,
You know what I mean?
right?
And I remember also, like, question came up. How do you respond? What do you do as a parent when every time you allow the child to, or children to go by the other parent,
Mm.
when they come back, you sense a complete difference. It's like they don't want to interact with you, or there's a rough kind of, what do you do?
Right.
And as you say, you know, one could try and inquire, so what happened? What did he tell you? What was
Oh,
going
no,
on?
Right, right.
Don't resist every temptation. That's why, as a Christian parent, it's good when you know you have God, because you know you can speak to Him.
Mhm.
You'll tell it, don't go there.
That's normally because
Hold
another
on.
parent
Right.
has said something.
Right.
And the child's like, okay,
Confused.
mum's going to be like this, and dad's going to be
Mm.
like that. So all you do is continue to be you,
That's it.
Right.
because actions do speak louder than words,
That's
right?
it.
So you just continue to be you, and then eventually you see your child come back around. You're like, oh
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
okay, so this is mummy.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
I
yeah.
heard wasn't quite right,
Yeah.
and you know, and they'll start to put two and two together.
Yeah.
So,
They can do maths.
That's-
I
yeah,
would say
they
so
do.
they can do maths.
better than
And-
us.
Okay. So I mean, it all calls for patience
Maturity.
and continue being you, as you
Mm.
said.
Mhm.
And truth always
Always
come
comes
out.
out,
It's just a
yeah.
matter of time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think as we are co-parenting, we should never, because Cole suggests that there's partnership, and Cole suggests that there needs to be a working together. I think that it is crucial that parents don't say ill of each other, which both of you alluded to, in any manner. You know, because sometimes we human beings like to do this favorite thing so that the child will love me more. I mean, we adults may say, oh, no, that's not my thought, but your behavior is saying that, you know. So if my thought isn't, I'm trying to get the child to love me more, or I want to look like the good guy or a good
Mhm.
girl,
Mhm.
that we need to refrain from that, because a child doesn't, you be you as a parent. You be well, you do what you're supposed to do and stuff like that. You don't have to prove that you are a better parent than the other one.
But that is it.
And I think that we become so competitive,
That is
especially when there's a splitting,
it. Mhm.
when you know, we find ourselves competing with each other. I want to be the best. I want the child to love me more. And as I said, we may never say, this is my intention, but our action is speaking louder
Louder
than
than
our
our
words.
words.
You know, when we do that, so the child is in a place where, oh wow, let me try to figure out my parents, because my
Mhm.
mother is saying this about my dad, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And when I go out by the other parent, all I see is love and kindness and stuff like that. And now the other parent is confusing me because, yeah, but you're saying that my,
We did this, but they didn't do that.
yeah, but it doesn't add up. It isn't adding up. So I think that we parents need to be mindful of that. Cut out this competitive behavior when it comes to parenting, because there's no need, or there shouldn't be a competition when parenting is involved. Why are we competing?
But that's a good question.
Do we want attention? Because we adults behave these ways sometimes, you know, and it blows my mind. Do we want attention? Are we lacking attention, so we want our children to always see us as the good
The
guy?
angel.
Sometimes there is a part of that, a little bit of insecurity.
Right.
You know, the need to be liked by
Mm.
whoever.
Mhm.
I think there also could be own childhood trauma as
Yeah.
well
Right.
playing out, and the fact that they may not have had a parent at all, so they want to try and be the best parent ever to
Right.
this child, or be the parent that they wish they had.
Mm.
And because they've not necessarily had a parent, they're not necessarily, they're not quite sure on how
How to do it.
how to do it.
Right.
So 9 times out of 10, when you do something for someone or do something that they like, they tend to like you. So that's kind of the easy road.
Right.
And then obviously there are the parts where it's immature. You just want to one up on your ex-partner and
Mhm.
all of that kind of foolishness. Let's just put it that way.
I've heard.
Yeah. You
Listen.
know, so and yeah, you know, so there could be numerous factors why, but it shouldn't happen. You shouldn't. You shouldn't be competing
Yeah.
with your ex or how you parent your child.
You know, but this is the reality, and I used to say before, and I guess that was what was humbling for me.
Mhm.
Going back to the point of speaking ill of the other person. Yeah, you who said I do to the person, though. You
Right.
chose the person,
Right.
right? So, you know, yeah, sometimes your choices may go bad, but the bottom line is you chose the person.
Yeah.
And imagine you talking about a parent like that to a child, but you both were married.
Right.
You understand? So there was a choosing going on there. Then the other element of competition now, I mean, that is something really serious, especially when it comes around Christmas time. It goes as far as one parent delays buying a gift because you want to find out what the mom bought or whatever. So what? And they'll ask the child, so what mom bought you? Oh, she bought her 2 bananas. So then next week he'll
About
bring
6.
5 bananas.
My
And he,
God.
yes, I mean,
Yeah.
they're serious as
Madness.
that. And then, they're coming eating all their 5 bananas and you the only 2. And it's like, oh, dear God. But the bottom line is, I give it from a place of love and sacrifice. And, you let it play out. But this thing about competition, it backfires. I realize that it backfires, because when they feel that they're winning over the child, actually the distance in the child, and I remember, I almost went too personal. But children, they observe, how come he does so and so? You notice he does it only when he wants us to do X, Y, and Z. And a little child will tell you that. So it always go back to intention and why it is you do what you do. And I always say, if you're co-parenting, both persons should be concentrating on doing it from a place of love. And if that is the case, then we'll put our ways aside and try to formulate something that will work for both. And I've heard of parents who both put together money and bought one gift for the child, even though they were separate,
Right.
different homes, So again, it's come back to what is our expectation? What is our intention?
Right. All
It
right.
can work.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say it can work because
Mhm.
I know my parents were separated, but
Right.
they, co-parented in an enterprised way.
Okay.
I never knew that there was any challenges. I was
See?
parented, and that's always been my model. So when I hear people talk about children from broken homes or separated parents and so on, I'm just like, and they talk about how their parents behave. That is totally foreign to me,
Right.
right? Because my parents were young, as I mentioned
Yeah.
before, when they had me. So they were relatively young when I was a teenager or
Mhm.
growing up.
Mhm.
And my dad used to have like birthday parties for me. My mum would attend. They would jointly,
Yeah.
join all their finances together to get me gifts and whatever. So
Mhm.
it can work,
Mhm.
but you have to be mature. You have to communicate. And all I can say is, both my parents had me as the center. It
Mhm.
wasn't about them.
Individuals.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
so that was my vision. So unfortunately, when my relationship broke down and I was with my son and I had an ex-partner to deal with, that was my model. I was like, well, it can work. It's worked
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
It can work, but you just have to really be mature and you really have to just put the child at the center. And it can be very difficult, but that is the key, I think, in terms of co-parenting. Try and put things to the past.
Mhm.
Focus on this young person who's reliant on both of you.
Yeah.
Right.
Relying
Yeah.
on both of you to become the best adult.
Right.
Yeah. And then when they come out, they're going to be the product of you and the other person. So, we all want to take the accolades when the child is doing really well, and they're studying
sure.
and doing good at sports and all the
Mm.
rest of it.
True.
But when they're, not ambitious, and they're lazy, they're rude or whatever, no one wants to take responsibility. Oh,
Right.
come on, you're like your father. Oh, that's not, you're like your mother. No, 50-50 here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
50-50.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's totally
Yeah.
50-50. So
Yeah.
you can't accept it when it's good and
Yeah.
dismiss when it's bad.
Yeah.
When it's good, it's my child, my child,
My
my
child.
child,
You know what I
right?
mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
my
But when it's
goodness.
poor or negative, you're so and so's child, or
Yeah.
you're, and it doesn't work. You're
But-
50-50.
Well, you said something that is very important, I think worth repeating, and it's a model I saw with my parents. Communication. You cannot, let me tell you, I remember there were
Good
times.
communication.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
so let me
Good to
tell
hear
you
about
from what
that.
I
Yeah.
understand as the good communication.
Mhm.
You'll see them sitting down in the sitting room and they'll talk about the plans for the children. Let's say in terms of education.
Mhm.
They'll be saying, oh, they want to see the children educated, daddy will put him aside, he want to do so and so, mommy talk about she want to do this and that. Then they might talk about pulling susu or whatever it is to raise us. Because I remember in our family, that's what our parents did. They wanted us to have the best education. So they worked together. So daddy did research, mommy did research, daddy took me to the place. Mommy found out one thing, daddy executed, all sort of things. And
Right.
up to, late when my dad talk about mom, he'll always say, that's my girlfriend. And I mean, he's in his 80s, right? And he'll always say that he can share anything with her and she will work it out, and they put two minds together to come up with a solution.
Right.
And I can say with that approach, they raised 6 of us. They accomplished so many things. You understand? But this idea that I'm seeing in this society, from my experience, when it comes to communication, not everyone wants to make that sacrifice
Right.
to sit down and talk, because it's somehow linked with one has to be right, one has to be wrong, one has to be better, one has to be worse. How about we just express ourselves and come up with a solution that we both can feel comfortable with, and then we stick with it and execute it.
I like the idea of what Colin was saying earlier when she said doing what is best for the child
Yeah.
versus what is best for you as a parent. Because we can easily find ourselves caught up in your personal agenda, and it doesn't necessarily fit the grand scheme of things. So I think it's important for us to look at our children, understand our children, of the direction that they would like to go, whether in terms of how they dress, how they behave, the etiquette and stuff like that. I think that's important, because each parent has their strengths and each parent has their weaknesses.
Yeah.
And if we find ourselves where we are hammering at the weakness of the other parent, we are missing out on the strength of the other parent.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you believe that you are a whole bag of potato chips and the other parent is just the raw potato, then you're clearly missing out. That's why God made us, where we have the two, so that you benefit from the gift of the other. It's like church, where we say we benefit from the gift of the other person, so that where I am weak, you are strong, so that we have the ability to gain from that other parent. So I think that it's important for us as parents to understand this, because you may be good. Let's say that you are good at writing, and you're able to help the child, son, daughter. You have to learn to form your letters properly. That is your strength. And then the other parent is, when it comes to being polite, they're very polite. So they're able to say, when you pass someone, say, "Excuse me, please." But
Right.
that's not your area. So your area, you may say, "But they call for all of that. Let the child alone. Don't let the child do what have to do. Just a child." And the other parent is, "No, you have to do this." Look at the both positive things there, right? Where the child can benefit from on both sides. Where, okay, mommy's good at this, daddy's good at this. Like, you do this because you are better at this than me. I think it takes great maturity. It's a level of maturity that is difficult for us adults, where we want to tell our children what to do, but when it comes to us being mature, we have a lot of work to do, because we find ourselves having these insecurity battles with each other, and then the child suffers as a result, because they can't benefit from that strength of the other parent. And I think that's important for us as parents to relax yourself, let the child benefit from the other parent, and so that you have a even stronger child. Because if one parent is good at this, the other is good at this, and you come together, look at the benefits that child will have from both worlds, both sides, both foundations, both family upbringing, and stuff like that. So that let's say the father came in a place where, just using for the sake of discussion, and father came in a place where his mother and father was in this space, and his siblings were in this space, and they live in the same house. So the father now understands working with each other, understands that you can't get all, because the other child may need some, or share it amongst each other. Then he grew up with seeing mommy and daddy playing with each other and laying on each other's lap, and chasing each other around the house, and going in the shower together and stuff like that. But the mother, like I say for the sake of discussion, didn't have that. So she grew up where there was no father in the house, or when she grew up in the house, the father and mother was always fighting. And then there were no discussion and so on. So two different dynamics coming into play.
Absolutely.
So the mother, not realizing, decides, oh, you don't have to play. What play? You don't need to play.
All that.
That's it. Isn't called for all of that.
that.
You know, isn't called for all of that. And the father says, no, but allow him. We play together and stuff like that. You know, and so we have these two dynamics come together, two different foundational dynamics, which can definitely help the child. And I think that we parents need to mature up and do better. We really need to do better.
Reflection too.
Yes, yes.
Because like for me, I have to know what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses.
Right.
And quickly, I'll just say, I remember for me, my strength was, well, in terms of, as you say, that nurturing part, spending time with the children, because I grew up watching that with mommy and they would take us to the park and do X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
For him, it was maths. Don't ask him to do maths at you. That was a
Makes
struggle.
sense.
That gave me struggle to eternity. But
Right.
anything to work out, go to daddy.
Right.
You know, so from that, you know, or he was good at shaping things and creating things. So my son will learn to make things. So it's like, go to him. You know, so you benefit from that. And the Bible talks about that, iron sharpening iron.
Yeah.
And it is so important. But again, it calls for a lot of, I think, humility.
Oh man.
Humility.
That seems to be my word for the day.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Humility. Yeah.
Recognizing I am not perfect. I cannot do it all by myself, you know? So therefore you try to pull and pull from one another and try to get it done. But it calls for humble pie.
Mhm.
Humble pie.
All the
Eating it.
things that are very difficult for adults to do.
Mhm.
Humility and reflection. On
Yes.
previous shows we talked about reflection, and it's not a natural thing for us to do. It's something you might reflect on something
Right.
that is very at a superficial level, where
Yeah.
you just think about, oh, what happened there? Oh, I'm not going to do that again, and that's
Right.
it. But
Right.
you don't think on the secondary level, a deeper level, like,
Mhm.
why did I do that?
Right.
What caused me to make that decision?
Mm.
What will stop me from making that decision again?
Again.
You know, we don't tend to do that. We do it at the superficial level. Oh, I'm not doing that again, and move on, and then you end up doing the same thing again
Right.
because the core of the reason why you made that decision hasn't been investigated,
Right.
Yeah.
hasn't been unpicked and unpacked, and so you'll make the same mistake again because it's still there.
Yeah,
Right.
it's true.
So that's we've got to work on ourselves a lot more. Because you become a different person almost, I think, when you become a parent.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You really become a different, you see sides of you that you didn't think you really
Yeah.
had, or, it can really change your personality, change your view and perspective on life. So many times I've heard people say, oh, now I had my child, it's a whole different world. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
you hear that all the time. And so you change as a person, and you
Right.
might have to get to know yourself again.
Yeah.
Because the Brian of 10 years ago, or just before this child was even born, like an hour ago before this child was born, was a different Brian
Right.
that is now here.
Yeah.
So, you have to do work on self as well
Yeah.
in this new circumstance or dynamic of caring for this child.
Yeah.
And we
Very true.
sometimes don't do that.
Very true. And I think also, we have to be mindful of our parenting from brokenness.
Yes.
Because it happens a lot,
Yeah.
especially when there's a falling up. You're not getting along together any longer. So we parent from that place. So I think that we have to be also mindful of that, so that we don't parent from brokenness. Because if we parent from being broken, then we are going to pass on the brokenness to our children. So, okay, I didn't grow up with my father, so I don't want my child to hear what his father has to say. I didn't grow up with my mother, so I don't want my son or my daughter to hear what the mother has to say, because in my mind, I have rejected my parent. So now I want my child to begin to reject their parent too.
Wow.
So we a lot of us parent from brokenness, and it has hurt a lot of children, obviously, because if I'm parenting from being broken, then I have to also consider that I am giving the brokenness to that whom I am raising. And I know we don't often see it from that point of view. We think that we are doing the best we could, But I think we have to, and you alluded to it, Dr. Colleen, we have to seriously become humble. You said it earlier, that Charity. We have to become humble, do self-introspection,
Mhm.
so that when we do this and the show, it is not coming from a place of brokenness, because then we are passing on our brokenness to whom we are now responsible for, and giving them guidance and support. So we're giving them the thing that has come on, and then it goes through the generations. Because if this is what happens to me, then I give to those that I'm now responsible for what I had that was broken. We give them the wellness too, but we give them that which was broken. So I'm now passing on my brokenness to my children. And so when we sit down and look at ourselves and we look at our children, are we seeing an image of brokenness that we had and the children now have? How did they get it? They only got it by passing. They inherited it by us passing it on through our speech,
Yeah.
through our language, through our interaction, our behavior, and so many different things we're passing it on. So what happens now? Your child goes and get children and pass on the same thing. So then you have generations of broken people, because one parent at that point in time didn't take the opportunity to self-reflect, and see if there's part of me that needs some work that I'm passing on to my child. And if I know that it's broken, I am being intentional about not passing it on, because I know the damage that it has done to me as a person. So it has done this damage to me. So, oh Lord, help me not to pass this on to my children. Let them be whole, Lord. Let my children be whole. Let my children not be broken children, because of how I have parent as an adult. I have parent this way. So my children have become like this because I have parented this way, and I have parented this way because of my brokenness. So now my seed is now suffering because of my brokenness. And I think that as parents, we really have to look at it and examine ourselves, so that the brokenness in me is not what is raising my children. It is the healing, or that which has been healed in me. And, at times we can actually confess to our children, I have an issue with this and I'm working on it. So here is why I behave the way I behave at this point in time. Or I behave this way. I drop things on the floor when your mother said this to me, because I'm angry and I am accustomed to doing it this way. It is not right, but I do it this way. So that I'm not telling the child, you get older, throw about things in the house, man. Somebody makes sure it said drop things and stuff like that. No, you let them know I am broken in this area. God is helping me. I'm trying to do better, but this is what I do. So I don't want you to do it.
Right.
I think that it's important to do that. Obviously, we have not got into the blended family, and we will need to do a part 4. We need to do, because blended families are very important, and it is what is current, what's going on in the world today, and we really have to look at that. So we just have just a few minutes to go before we wrap up this session. But I think that what we are sharing is very important, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are viewing, boys and girls, whoever you call yourself, if you are viewing the program, we hope that the program is a blessing to you. I hope your eyes are being open today. We encourage you to, listen to our opinions and our thoughts in a way, so that, because then we listen to opinions and thoughts and we reject them without even really understanding what is being said, or trying to see the wisdom behind the words that are being released, as opposing to just saying, oh, I don't want to hear it. I'm going to just do it like this. I'm accustomed to doing it like this. This is the best way. I know how, and I'm not listening to others. Proverbs says, if you do that, you're a fool. Solomon says, if you do that, you're a fool. Not Solomon Robinson, but King Solomon. I'm sorry.
Go home,
I know, right? Who's that? So we have to really look at ourselves. Ladies, do we have to look at ourselves as parents?
Definitely. I mean, it's something that you do, at least for me, I have to do it all the time. I just thank God I had, in some regards, the role model aspect. So I had a reference point,
Mhm.
especially in terms of mothering. So it's like in any circumstance, you pull out the plus or the best.
Mhm.
You know, you're not saying that you're going to imitate everything because what might
Right.
have worked then may not work now.
Correct.
So you try to pull out the better things and you try to reflect, and not only that, you're, especially if you're a child of God,
Mhm.
you go before God, Father, what am I doing? Is it the correct way?
Right.
How can I improve in this situation? Or you might see children doing certain things and you wish it can be a little bit better.
Yeah.
How do I approach to make this thing better? And you pray, and you know, sometimes the word will tell you scripture, and then sometimes you might be talking with a friend and you know, she might say something that makes you think or
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
You
Ever
learn-
learning,
you learn
ever
it,
learning. Yeah.
You know, you learn from observing different families as well, you know,
Mhm.
but you, as long as you're in that role or responsibility, just like any profession, you have to take a refresher.
Yeah.
A
True.
refresher look or a refresher course or refresher information to keep tightening up what you're doing.
True,
Yeah.
true. So,
I think we have to. I think everyone needs to pray for a teachable spirit, because it's really hard when you become an adult to then be
Wow.
told what you're doing or
Right.
have been doing
right.
is wrong,
wrong.
is incorrect,
Yeah.
you could do it differently. It is very hard pill to swallow. To swallow.
That's true.
Whether you're doing it in the comfort of your own home, just you and the mirror, or someone's holding the mirror to you and saying, look, this is what you need to look at. It's really, really, really tough. And I think you can only do that if you have a teachable spirit,
Right.
so that you're open to hearing what is being told to you. And, you know, you've talked about brokenness and parenting from that perspective. And you're absolutely correct, 100%. But the challenge is that a lot of people don't know they're teaching or parenting from a broken spot,
Conscious.
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
They feel that everything that they're doing is normal. That's how it was done with me, and look at me, I'm okay. And you know, and then as I said, our circles tend to mirror our own
Yeah.
perspectives and ways of life and so on. So it's sometimes very difficult for you to turn the mirror on yourself
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
everything looks cool, right? So I would say to pray for a teachable spirit so that you will learn from you know, you could be out on the road and see somebody do something and think, oh, that's different. You know, it doesn't have to be a conscious
Right.
thing that you're going out,
thing.
classroom,
Right,
workshop,
Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
You know, you can learn if
Well said.
you've got a teachable spirit, your eyes will be open
Yeah.
to opportunities to learn better ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And so that will be my thing, you know, teachable spirit. Once you've got that, then you are open to learning, to changing and developing.
True. Well, the ladies have said it, and I so agree. We want to wish you a great evening. We want to thank you for joining us on Living Life God's Way. We have had a discussion, and this is week 3 of raising teens in a Christian home. And we've covered different aspects of raising children. Co-parenting is definitely one. And that's what we have spoken about this evening. Next week, God's willing, we want to look at the blended family, because that's also part of raising teens and raising young children, you know, and so on. The blend, the pineapple mixed up with the lemon and the orange and stuff, all mixed up in there, trying to create a nice smoothie.
Fruit salad.
Oh.
And that's in the
A
fruit
nice
salad.
fruit salad.
Absolutely.
Dr. Cully says a nice fruit salad. You know, and we want at the end of it that our fruit salad is great. So that's why the blending is so important. So we want to discuss that next week. Please join us. Tell a friend that Living Life God's Way is on. And we are on every Thursday at 6:30. We speak the truth. We get into the heart of the matter. It's real talk every time here. That's what we do, because we know these circumstances and issues are very real. So on behalf of Dr. Colling, Elder Sheridan, and myself, and all of us here at the Living Life God's Way program, we are so happy that you've been with us. We wish you a fantastic weekend. May God bless you. Join us tomorrow on Friday for a time of prayer, and then Sunday morning for our worship service. So have a great evening. We love you. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Impacting lives, choose life, sharing love to everyone. Impacting lives, choose life, sharing joy through the
Welcome to Living Life God's Way. Real life, real talk, real hope. Every show. Join us every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. as we discuss topics relating to life, church, family, education, and so much more. Invite a friend. Tag them even. But don't you dare miss the show. Living Life God's Way. Every Thursday at 6:30 p.m.